Robert Ohado, and welcome to this social live. So, are there some astrology signs that you should just flat out avoid because of what your sign is? Is that really true? Is astrological or zodiacal compatibility really a thing? How can you use it if it is? How do you know if you should avoid Scorpios or Aries or Pisces? We're going to get into it. So listen, got a lot to say about this topic. It's in my wheelhouse. One of my fortes is actually astrology. And I'm going to bring to the fold here some thought reversal insights for you, because I'm just going to tell you right now that everything you've probably thought about or heard about when it comes to astrological compatibility is absolutely wrong. So it's a big statement to make, and I'm going to back it up throughout this whole entire live. Hang with me. I'm just going to check in with everybody real quick here and make sure that I am streaming and that I'm actually live, because you just never know, and I don't have a production team today. So bear with me while I just get those checks done. And welcome. It's great to be back. It's been a long time. I just for those of you who follow my work already, and if you don't, just bear with me for a minute here. I had a really rough 6 months. I broke my shoulder, had to have surgery. I lost a pet, and I had another pet almost die. I had a ton of other stuff I won't get completely into, but just suffice to say, it was a bit rough. It was a bit of a rough ride the past few months, and it kind of clipped me out. So it's just great to be back, sharing with you anything I can. And we're going to start with one of my favorite things, astrology. So while we get into the social life, I do want you to think about all of the different things that you've thought about or heard about when it comes to astrological compatibility or zodiacal compatibility. What have you heard about this before? I mean, there's books published on this, right? I mean, that go through all the sun signs. And what is a sun sign anyway? Do you even actually know what that is? I'm going to just explain that shortly. And what we're going to be looking at is there's so many things we got to break down. What sun signs are. And then also, what is compatibility? Like, do you actually know what the word compatibility means? Do you actually know what it's about? We have a cultural confusion around compatibility that's actually caused most of us in the dating and relating game a lot of headache and a lot of confusion and a lot of suffering. So I'm here to tell you, from my eyes, what compatibility itself, regardless of astrology, is really about. And then we're going to weave in astrology. We're going to talk about the sun signs. I'm going to help you identify what your sun sign is if you don't already know. And just kind of go through some insights here that I think are going to kind of blow up some paradigms. So a lot of times you have probably seen that there's a lot of focus on certain signs are meant to be with certain other signs. And so therefore Virgo pairs well with Taurus, or Taurus, doesn't pair well with Scorpio because they're opposites. Or, there's, and let me just tell you out of the gate, it's all BS. It's all BS. Now, is there a way we can use compatibility when it comes to astrology? Yes. There actually is a truth deeper in here of where astrology can be incredibly useful in understanding, and this is the key, whether your destiny and your journey of destiny is compatible with someone else's journey of destiny. Now, we're going to have to dial into that, but also flush out what compatibility is in the first place. So let me just take a minute and say hi to everybody here. I see Gail. I see Bernadette. I see Fatima. She's in my premium membership. Nick Anderson's also in my premium membership. So I have a membership, by the way, on my website, and it only opens once a year. It's going to be opening up again around Christmas, so stay tuned on that. And I actually talk a lot about astrology in there. Hey, Tiffany, Doug Para, I've got all my people here. Well, hey, everybody, welcome. I'm just really, really excited that you're here, and so glad that I'm able to do this and hang out with you. And we're gonna get at it. I've got a lot of things going on technically, and I'm going to be bringing up a lot of slides, so it's going to be a little bit of flow through lots of different things as I dial all this in, and a lot of content to kind of switch around. I'm trying to get a little more visual than I usually do in my lives, so you have to bear with me on when I do some adjustments here. It's like being in a TV studio. Anyway, yes, I see lots of people, a lot of my memberships here. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. So this is streaming on Facebook Live, and also YouTube. And that's typically where the two places I stream. As soon as Instagram lets us stream live there. I'll do that. I'll do that if I don't have to use diagrams and stuff going forward, but there's a lot of diagrams and things I want to put up on the screen for you in this particular live. So we have to only stick with Facebook and YouTube. So if you are on my YouTube channel, you're catching me, make sure you subscribe and clean that little bell button so you always get updates of when I'm going live. And if you're on Facebook, same thing. Just if you're on my Facebook page, make sure that you're following me. And then there's a way that you can actually get updated when I go live or set a live. I try to do these a little bit more in advance. And as I get back on the horse here, I'll be sure to do that. Okay, so let's dive in. Let me just put up on the screen here a little bit of something to get us going in terms of a visual. Now, you've probably seen this, right? This is the zodiac, right? This is all the 12 signs and their symbols. And so what is your sun sign? What is that? We got to talk about that. So if you already know, you've probably deduced what your sun sign is based on this thing you might read in, the local rag or a magazine or maybe an astrology book where it starts to demarcate the sun signs. Now, let me be clear, just to be technical and clear here for a sec. What I'm talking about here is Western tropical astrology. This is not Vedic astrology. This is not Chinese astrology. This is Western tropical astrology. So you got to get into the system first and understand that what you mostly know, what most people know about astrology is the Western tropical model. It's the one that we use primarily in the West, and it's the one that is found dominantly in magazine articles or magazine sections, newspapers, etc. When you look up your horoscope, that's based on sun signs. So what the sun sign is, based on the Western tropical zodiac, it's where the sun was in relationship to this projected band of constellations that are divided into 30-degree segments in the sky. And it's where the sun was at that time that you were born. So let's say you were born July 15th. Well, that means that you have a sun in Cancer because that's where in the Western tropical zodiac, the sun was at the time of your birth. Now, I could get all technical and talk about how the constellations have shifted through something called the precession of equinoxes over thousands of years, and how the zodiac doesn't line up, and the stars themselves don't line up exactly to this model. That's all true. But what matters and what I want to share with you is that it works. And my background with this, in case you're new to me, is that I'm an intuitive, but I've used the, let's say, intuitive tool of astrology, Western astrology, for over 20 years. So I've got experience and work in the field around this tool that taught me things, and having sort of a dual skill set, one sort of being an astrologer, one being an intuitive, gave me a chance to kind of look at the model of astrology that I learned coming up in the ranks and realized that it wasn't exactly accurate, that it needed reframing, that it needed to be understood from a different lens. So the first thing I've got to shift for you is what sun signs are. Now, you may relate to what sun signs are from this point of view of what you innately are based on where the sun was when you were born. So let's say, you are a Cancer, July 15th. Well, I'm, based on the astrology books and based on all the definitions, and I'm going to say stereotypes out there, I'm sensitive and I need, comfort and home and a sense of home and family. And I'm really connected to the mother archetype and mother energy. And, here's the thing. There's many people I've done readings on, and this may be you, that have heard the definition of their sun sign and they don't relate to that really at all. And then what they tend to do is write astrology off completely, like it's just BS. It doesn't have any truth in it. And I would do the same thing if I didn't know better. Because what's true about your sun sign is that it's not what you innately are at all. I want you to get an image. Let's come back to the sun here. Get an image of the sun. The sun is a core active archetypal principle. In our own solar system, it is the source of all life here on this planet and holds the whole solar system in place through its gravity. So it's a coordinating force of creation. In you, if I were to give you a glimpse at your own birth chart, so let's look at a birth chart real quick, because this is actually the truth. You're not just your sun sign, by the way. You're an entire chart that looks just like this. Now, not exactly like that. Your planets and everything are going to line up differently based on your time at birth and place, but you're an entire chart that actually has that kind of complexity. So when you see, people talking about sun signs and they're talking about these things in very generic ways, but as if it's completely specific to you, it makes sense you might be a little hesitant to believe any of it. I would be. But what I know is that you're more than just a sun sign, but I also know this, and this is what I'm teaching you today, that the sun sign is in fact the core force of destiny in your life. I want you to think of it this way. Rather than that list of adjectives that you always see around what an Aries is, or what a Scorpio is, or what an Aquarian is, rather than that list of adjectives, which are really more stereotypes. So I call it stereotypal astrology. Rather than that being what you innately are. Moreover, what it really is, it's what you signed up to become in a lifetime. Now, that's a anchoring core sense of gravity to your destiny. Just like the sun is the core gravity of our solar system. It keeps all the planets where they are in their orbit, and it illumines and gives off its energy, and we experience it here on this planet as this life-giving force that all things grow from. Similarly, now you got to understand astrology as a tool of synchronicity and symbolism. The sun in your birth chart, your natal sun, is the same force. It's a force in you, in your life, in what I call your soul agreements or soul contract, that is about development. It's not about what you innately are at all. It's about what you came to the planet to develop as a new piece of your soul. It's rather, I signed up for a Taurus journey this lifetime, so I've got to work with Taurus patterns. So what I would have you do, I would have you look at your sun sign. And the way you identify that, once again, is you can Google this and find out where in the Western tropical zodiac are the cutoff dates for sun signs. Some of you may be born on a cusp, and to know your exact sun sign, in that case, you got to get your chart specifically done with your exact birth time. And just a caveat here, you're either one sign or another. You're not two because you're on a cusp. That's BS too. It doesn't work that way. And I say this from experience and literally thousands of readings. This doesn't come from me reading it in a book. This comes from me actually doing intuitive work with this tool over 2 decades. You're either one sun or another. Now, you can have other forces and energies of the cusping sign elsewhere represented in your chart, which make you feel like you have that energy. That's absolutely possible. Or you might have, your moon in the other cusping sign. So then that's going to bring in that pattern to you a little bit, that energy. But your sun sign is a singular deal. And it's a coordinating force of creation. And I want you to think about it from this point of view. It's like a companion that says, hey, for you to pull off your destiny this lifetime, you got to work with me. So if you're a sun in Capricorn, for example, and let's say you don't feel like you're really, driven, ambitious, just ready to climb every mountain, have tons of resiliency and stamina, and, get right back up after you get, knocked down. You don't feel like that at all. In fact, you getting knocked down takes a week to get up. But your sun is in Capricorn. What I would say to you is, yeah, exactly. This lifetime, you got to learn to get back up faster. You got to keep climbing the mountain even when it's hard. This is your life's destiny, and this is your growth. So track with me, because this is going to matter when I get to compatibility. You're on a journey of growth, are you not? You didn't step into this matrix of life just to be coded over by some stereotype per an astrology sign. Your destiny is a verb. And most astrology treats destiny as a noun, especially when it comes to sun signs. This is what you are. Rather, I'm going to tell you, no, it's what you're becoming. It's what you signed up to become. And if you could know the depth of how I know this stuff, and I'm going to go through a little LITE, a little schooling on this in a minute here. But if you could know the depth of that, if I could get you in my brain and open my library and have you read the books in my head that I've written internally from all my work, you would start to read, oh yeah, I do have a Capricorn sun. And what's also true is life has constellated in such a way that a lot of my life events were just like climbing mountains. It was like getting knocked down and having to get back up. And the only way through to my empowerment, to my enlightenment, to my awareness, to my co-creative power was to follow the pattern of Capricorn. And I could point to all the events in your life that were designed, contracted to occur such that you would develop a Capricorn psyche. That is what your sun sign brings online. That it's a big, big true north. So if you've got a sun in Cancer, back to that example, that means this lifetime, guess what? It's a water sign, which means we're in the emotional territory of what makes us who we are. And what's also true is this lifetime for you, sun in Cancer, you've got to find emotional anchors and reasons for living. It's about getting into a sense of emotional mastery this lifetime. And you've got to co-create for yourself the archetype of home and family. And most of the time, what I find with people with sun in Cancer is they had a very shaky background with their family, usually most notably with their mother, in such a way that they had to somehow almost mystically arrive at a sense of self-parenting so that their inner child wouldn't be freaking out and feeling like everything and anything would abandon it at any moment. So the sun in Cancer destiny, one thread is you got to learn how to self-parent. You got to learn how to create a very emotionally nourishing and vulnerable in a strong way sense of family for your life. And usually it's a family of creation. Your family of origin didn't offer it. So you signed up to work with that pattern, because that is the Cancer pattern, as a facet of you becoming you this lifetime. Now, this is just one element out of, once again, this whole entire chart. Which just substitute you. There's a whole other set of celestial instructions here. There's also a lot that's said about your wiring and what makes you tick and what your patterns are. All that's in here for me. And more, and then some. So when it comes to the sun sign, identify what it is, if you haven't already, based on the dates as they break apart once you Google that. If you're a cusping sign, maybe go to a free website where you can get your chart done for free and just get a sense of, just identify your sun. The sun, by the way, is the symbol in a birth chart. It's this round symbol with a dot in the middle. And so when you see that in a birth chart and you're going to see a sign next to it and that symbol as well, that's going to dial you in. So if I were to show you how this breaks down through some sort of legend, it looks like this, right? These are all the symbols of the zodiac. And then on the right side, you've got Aries, you got all the symbols and also their names, so you know which they are. And then you got all the planets and also all their names and aspects of the chart, so you know what those are. That's what you'd want to decode. But right now, today, I'm just here to share with you, first of all, what your sun sign is. And I got to share that with you because you're not going to know about compatibility when it comes to zodiac signs until I do. Until you understand your own birth chart and what it is, we can't talk about compatibility. You don't even know you. If you don't know you and what your destiny is about and the patterns of your destiny, the dominant patterns of your destiny, how are you going to start evaluating compatibility with somebody in a deeper way? I got you. We're going to talk about it. So I hope you're clear on what a sun sign is. It does not signify what you innately are per se. Now, sometimes someone has a moon, which is more of an innate pattern that you bring in with you into this lifetime, and a sun in the same sign. So therefore, they might feel like, oh no, I've got moon in Virgo and sun in Virgo. I feel pretty Virgo. Yeah, I have since I was a kid. Well, yeah, because you brought that in on a soul level with you. It's innate to you. And then sometimes we have moons that culture doesn't let us have access to. So let's say I'm a woman, I have an Aries moon, which is a very masculine-driven warrior archetype and pattern, in part, pioneering, adventurous. But traditionally, that's not what women are allowed access to in their psyche. So if you're born into a patriarchal culture where Aries energy for the female gender is not allowed to be expressed, then what do you do with an inner moon that's like, but this is who I am. I am just by my nature, a bit of a warrior. I'm an advocate. I'm a rebel. I'm a pioneer. I'm a fire sign. What happens to that moon? That's maybe for another Facebook Live or social live, but I'll tell you right now, It goes into the shadow and gets projected away. And usually how our culture sets it up is it tells you to go marry the moon in a man. If you can't lay claim to what's in your nature, then the marriage model says, well, go marry your other half. And frankly, that's exactly what it is. So this is where you get into archetype. Now, what's archetype? There's many ways I could language what an archetype is, but just for now, I just say it's a pattern. So the zodiac, these are zodiacal archetypes. They're patterns, and in them. So, for example, in Aries is its own pattern, but in Aries are other sub patterns, like the warrior, like the rebel, like the knight, like the advocate, like the pioneer, and that's where you get into a deeper territory about understanding you and beginning to see what culture or family wouldn't even allow out of the birth canal when you were born that came in with your soul. Anything not allowed went right to the shadow. And it's probably meeting you in your life now in shadow form. And that's usually not very fun. I call that shadow dancing. So hope you get what your sun sign is. It is something, it's the dominant archetypal pattern that you're meant to work with in this lifetime. It's something you're becoming and it's never done. So let's go through, let me ground this a little bit real quickly through the signs, and then we're going to talk about compatibility. So Aries, I just talked about this. There's a list here of archetypes that are part of the Aries pattern. It's a fire sign. It's cardinal, which means it's initiatory. It initiates a season. So when you look at the signs, they're all based on seasons. They come in these pairs of three, 4 pairs of 3 that are symbolic of the seasonal processes of each season. So Aries kicks off spring. And it's about new beginnings. It's an energy that initiates action. And then you have archetypes under Aries that express that. So the rebel initiates action. The activist, the leader, they're about action. They initiate and lead and bring new creation forward. Now, if you're a sun in Aries, that means that all those archetypes there that I'm listing right there, all of those you're meant to work with perhaps in your lifetime and becoming you. And here's how you know that you're on track with what I call destiny archetypes, because these are destiny archetypes. Destiny means we're talking about stuff that you didn't bring in with you on a soul level. We're talking about stuff in your own soul contract and journey here that you have to develop. You're not innately those archetypes. This lifetime, you're meant to become them. And that takes time. So the sun is always saying, keep coming to the light, keep coming, keep becoming, keep growing, keep shining. Let's do this. Here's the dominant pattern. This lifetime, that's your guide. That's your coach. That's your true north. And so the more you work with the archetypes that are part of your sun signs pattern, the more alive you're going to feel, the more empowered you're going to feel, the more connected to yourself you're going to feel. And let me tell you one other thing, the more the whole matrix of life responds to you, opens doors for you where there weren't any. So when you're an Aries sun and you decide, I'm finally going to pioneer, I'm finally going to rebel, next thing you know, you got the whole gods at your back because you're in alignment with destiny now. And it's not comfortable. And that's how you know you're in your sun signs patterns. It usually feels funky. It feels foreign. It feels like, I don't want to rebel. I don't like confrontation. Exactly. That's what growth feels like. Uncomfortable. It's outside of what you know. It's outside of what you know of yourself. It's the pattern that you're meant to become that feels funky until you kind of get on that bike and you keep riding. After a while, guess what? That rebel feels like home. Every sign has this same mandate in terms of the sun sign. So no matter what sun sign you may be, if you're a sun in Scorpio, well, guess what? You're going to need to learn this lifetime how to work with the human psyche in very dynamic ways when it comes to psychology and psychospirituality and psycho-emotionality. This is an emotional territory, but it's psycho-emotional. It's about the psychology of emotion. And it's about also then at the deepest level of Scorpio, moving into a way to be with emotions as an alchemist. That's one of its sub-archetypes. So we're going to keep going real quick through the signs. Here's Taurus. So if you got a sun in Taurus, you got to learn, this is an earth sign, how to, first of all, get in your damn body. But secondly, how to find the divine in this realm. This is where you would be countercultural in a culture that splits heaven and earth and says, you know, we're through a lot of religious traditions that a lot of us came up in, and certainly the psychic fabric of culture itself, we're led to believe that somehow there's a greater, more valuable realm that we call heaven or the afterlife or whatever, and that earth's just a, you know, place of banishment or a place to work off karma or a place to, well, no. That's actually out of alignment with actual mystical truth. The truth is all is one. Everything is value, dimension to dimension. No dimension is more valuable than the other. In fact, the earth and all that's in form is just as valuable as things that are in energy. So Taurus has to learn that, and also learn how to own oneself and understand their value deeper. And there's many patterns that surround that sign in a sun journey. So Gemini has to learn, hey, my solar path is about developing the best assets of the human mind, to become a good communicator, to be a student, to be curious. And also because we're in the symbolism of duality with the twins. One's ugly, one's pretty, one's male, one's female. It's about, I've got to learn everything that exists between black and white. I've got to learn how to be with life in terms of the rainbow that it actually is. And once again, we're countercultural because we live in an either or culture, a black or white culture. It's this or that culture. It's not both and, much to our own demise, frankly, especially these days. So Gemini's, the solar journey, is always going to be pressured. Hey, where's the both and here? Where's the rainbow? I'm stuck in black and white. And I've got to communicate. I'm just giving you one layer of these signs, by the way. So I don't have time to go through all of them. It's going to become way too long of a live. And I just want to get your thinking going. And what I would just tell you to do is some homework. Go pull up an astrology book and read all the adjectives of what a sun sign is, but don't read into it's what you innately are. Delete that. Not true. Rather, look at those adjectives or look at those descriptions as something you're under contract to become. And now you're probably getting into some close territory around what's true about your solar quest and what's true about your solar journey. Now, this is going to matter greatly when it comes to, all right, how do we work with compatibility then? How do I, as a sun in Gemini, who's on this quest of learning, student archetype, communication, communicator archetype, orator, writer, I'm giving you a lot of archetypes from Gemini. How am I going to actually relate to someone who's Scorpio? And they're taking deep dives into their shadow, and they're working out like serious generational ancestral trauma, and they're learning how to do psycho-emotional alchemy on themselves. That's their solar quest. Mine is, to learn all about what's between black and white. How compatible are we? Now you're into some good questions. Because compatibility when it comes to astrology is not about the crap you've read. It is about how compatible is someone else's solar destiny journey with mine? What kind of companion to my solar journey would they make, and vice versa? What kind of companion would I make to theirs? Is it an enhancing companionship? Or are we at odds in some way in which we're not going to relate real well? Or it's going to be very combustible. Hold those thoughts. We're getting there. I got to continue a little tour through the sun signs, but I want you to kind of start feeling the vibe here. Because now as we look at Cancer, we're talking about, okay, this is a solar journey of development that involves the mother archetype. Like I gave this example pretty clearly earlier. It's about the inner parents, the inner mystical parents. It is about your child archetype too, because hello, anytime we're going to mention parents, we're recruiting the child. That's the archetypal match. Now we've also got to understand the nature of our inner child and childhood. So what kind of childhood did you have? That's going to greatly frame your Cancerian development. Did you have one where you were abandoned? Well, you're going to have to learn some truths about life and how to be with a world that's full of abandonment and still be vulnerable emotionally. Both and. Anything and everything in this life can abandon you. That's just the truth. No one can promise they're not going to abandon you. Come on. But can you maybe cultivate a capacity in yourself as a Cancer to stop abandoning you? Because that's where you have power. You don't have power to control whether someone else abandons you or not, but you do have some power in the cultivation of self-parenting and being there for yourself no matter what. That means being there for yourself when you don't like yourself. That means being there for yourself when you've done something that you need to make an amends for. That means being for yourself when you feel ashamed. It's easy to be there for yourself when you're in our cultural definitions of Instagram filter perfectionism. But can you be there for yourself when it's warts and all? Because that's touching into the heart and pulse of a Cancer journey. Because it's about, I got to feel emotionally safe in this life. And I'm on a journey of discovering what that means, what it takes, and the way I've got to cultivate and create that as a co-creator for myself. Knowing where power and powerlessness are, I can't go manage people and make them love me and make them stay and make them not go and make them be honest and make them never betray me. But I can begin a self-relationship where I create my own sense of security. And guess what? I've seen those that do Cancer really well. They can go anywhere in the world and feel at home because they don't abandon themselves no matter where they are. They can go anywhere in the world and feel secure. So that's kind of leaning back into what are these sun signs about? It's about development. It's about building new, like, co-creative muscles. And life will put in your path obstacles and challenges that are really creative obstacles. They're there to help you co-create the sun signs, patterns, and mandates, and its graces and power and gifts. The more you become your sun, which gets, for most people, a bit more obvious as they're older, well, the more life starts to smile at you, in a certain sense. You're not opted out of pain and suffering, no one is, but it does seem like you get a helping hand and an extra door opening and some magic here and there. So Leo, this is a sign that's about, hey, the solar journey here is about shining and learning how to live from your creative essential self. It's learning to understand yourself as a unique, singular force of creation in life, a star. You're a star. It's also about the king and queen archetypes. You've got to become your own sovereign creatively. You've got to trust your interior creative and intuitive forces. And it's a journey of shining in that sense. It's about lighting up creatively the world. So if you're a sun in Leo, that means as you are journeying in this life, that you have a soul contract to become more luminous in this creative sense and to become aware that your spirit is meant to align to your own creative authority in the end game. Hey, we got to hold court with other people as kings and queens. I'm not saying we just sit there on our thrones and be gone with the rest of you. It's no, but I don't leave my throne when you enter the room and sit on your throne. And I don't have relationships that ask me to leave my throne creatively. I don't do that. Because then I'm out of alignment now with my creative solar quest and sun signs destiny. So you start to learn. And once again, most sun and Leos, what has their background been about? They've probably been pretty dimmed down. Maybe in their family line, no one knew how to shine. And this desire to creatively live this authenticity into the world, handed down generation after generation. And it lands in your lap as a solar journey this lifetime to shine, to heal the family psyche and the ancestry you come from. This is another thread of how sun signs work. So Leo is about the creative journey of the essential self and its expression. And so a lot of times, people who are sun and Leo will look at all the definitions of Leo and like, oh, I don't want to be on stage. I so don't want to be, the life of the party. I so don't want to be all the things that they say Leo is. Throw it out. That's not it at all. What it is, hey, I'm under soul contract to live a destiny of luminosity, creatively. I'm under soul contract to understand my unique core self. I'm under a soul contract to shine. And if my light's too bright, I can just tell everyone politely, put on sunglasses because I'm not dimming down anymore. It's that journey. So most Sun and Leos, when I say that to them, they go, yeah, that's exactly right. I've been dimmed down my whole life. I've had light dimmers around me. I've struggled with creative expression. Absolutely. All right, next sign, Virgo. So Virgo, sun sign. This is about, oh boy, this is about, it's an earth sign. So it's a solar quest of working with the healer archetype, becoming a technician, becoming a designer, someone who can like understand how to put things together. It's a journey of working with things integratively. Integratively is really the key. So there's a sense of health, wellness around this, and bringing together things into some new. In integration, we bring separate things together to create a greater whole, or a greater product, or a greater expression of something. And that's exactly what Virgo's pattern has a lot to do with. But it also has to do with, and as does Taurus, by the way, in a solar quest, has a lot to do with the Sacred Prostitute. So both Taurus and Virgo have to learn this key lesson. And we all do. And so here's the thing you got to understand. I'm going to start saying stuff, and as I go through these signs, and you're like, well, that relates to me too, but I'm a Taurus, or I'm a Cancer. Yeah, you have all 12 signs and their energies in you, by the way. So you are, as I always say, the whole birth chart. So if we look at this birth chart again, you're going to see all the signs there. Even though not all the planets are in every sign, you're still everything in that chart, including all those signs to some degree, because what these signs are, and listen up, because this is really key. What these signs are, these 12 zodiacal signs and what they represent, are the biological, psychological, psychospiritual, and mystical stages of human development. They each represent a stage of human development in their pattern. So, of course, you're going to have some of these signs in you and aspects of them, maybe because you have a focus through your archetypes and as represented by your birth chart that you're not aware of because you've never had it done. Or maybe because, it just that happens to be true that, yes, there's a Taurus aspect to me. I'm in a body. Yes, there's a Virgo aspect to me. I have many health systems that are inside my body. Yes, there's a Gemini aspect to me because I have to talk and communicate with people every day. It's called being alive and having a life where you communicate and talk to people. Yeah, of course, there's a little Leo in me. I've got to creatively be willing to risk exposing and expressing my essential self. Absolutely. What a sun sign says is this is an area of focus, focused development, dominant development, and dominant growth. But it's not that you don't have other energies going on. What is true is that all of those other energies somehow serve the sun. They answer back to the solar quest. Just like the sun, all the planets in the solar system answer to our sun. In that sense of it's the sun generating everything, holding it together. So as we get to Virgo here, let's come back. The Sacred Prostitute is a developmental force in all of us. And it's not about selling yourself on the street corner as a sex worker. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that from my point of view. I'm just saying that's not exactly accurate. What it is about is we all got to sell. We all got to sell to survive. I sell courses to survive. I sell courses to do free things. Nothing's free for me. So look, we all got to, let's just come to a common truth. We all got to sell. Why do we make that a bad thing? Why do we shame that? And if the reasons are many, but the dominant reasons why we are uncomfortable with that is because we live in a low esteem system in our society. And we don't know how to give our soul's currency. We're not taught that. We're taught certain things actually should just be free. If you're a healer, why don't you just do everything for free? We're not taught give your soul skills and your soul skills value financially. Connect heaven and earth. That's a Virgo journey. That's what integration means. It means I'm not going to look at things split anymore. And it's about the physical survival and wellness of your body, your being, your embodiment. So Virgo's on a journey where the tests come. Will you charge your value? Will you give your soul currency? Will you integrate it? Will you give your soul skills currency and ignore the haters that think, just because you're a healer, you should do it for free. Or just because you're teaching in spirituality, it should all be free. And just because this and that. No one says that to a really badass lawyer. You should just do it all for free. Or a surgeon. And they're healers. Surgeons are healers. When you start to break it down, you start to go into Virgo's alchemy and Virgo's destiny. And it's like, wait a minute, no. So Virgos have this task in part, as do Tauruses to some degree, and all of us to some degree, but a focused task of, I've really got to learn to be integrative and holistic. I've got to understand the holism of things, how all systems interrelate. And I've got to somehow in my spiritual journey here, psycho-spiritual journey, begin to understand my esteem system and how that factors into how I survive and thrive or don't. So there can be a lot of patterns in Virgo that support that process and support or speak to it or represent challenges in the process. So like the starving healer would be one of the patterns in there that's a Virgo dilemma. I want to help everybody, and I feel like, it's spiritual or psychological, and why, I'm supposed to be on call every 24/7 because I'm a healer and I'm a therapist or whatever. I don't get time off. I don't get office hours. Yeah, you do. And the Virgo has to learn that. Like, no, I actually do get office hours. And yeah, I am going to charge that much for my soul skills. And yeah, I am going, because you know what? This is called economy. This is called Virgo economics. So that's just one level of Virgo, one. All right, Libra, let's look at that. So the solar journey of Libra is about relationship, obviously. You probably have heard this before. And it is about relationship from many angles. The relationships that teach us our value, primarily. So we meet who we are in relationship. We learn who we are in relationship. And that's how it is. We're wounded in relationship. And let me tell you something else Libra is going to learn. You're going to heal through relationship as well. You don't heal on your own. You heal through relationship. You're wounded through relationship. Both are true. Both are connected. So this is about partners. This is about companions. It's about, lovers. And I don't mean lovers a la 80s term. It's my lover. I mean mystical lover. I mean, hey, you know what? I don't even like you and I love you, because soul to soul, we're all connected and we're all one. But I still don't like you. Both are true. And I'll still tell you to get off my foot, and I'll still set a boundary with you and tell you to back up. And I'll still say no when you want me to say yes. And I do love you. It's that deeper way of being that the Libra's got to learn, of how to love in a way that honors their value. And then we enter into the challenges of codependency, or that codependent archetypes, Libra archetype in the shadow sense. So a lot of these sun signs have shadow pattern companions that represent the challenges of becoming that sun sign. So if we move from codependent to interdependent lover or companion. And that's a big focus for the Libran journey, but it's always about value and choice. There's a dilemma of development around choice, and choice is forever connected to value in us. I want you to think about something. It's one thing to say we value this or that, right? I value the environment and I'm concerned about climate change. So then, okay, let's look to your choices. Do your choices mirror your stated values? You drive a gas guzzling, 4x4 truck, and you don't recycle. And so I'm starting to feel something's off here. So in the Libran journey, it's about that kind of congruency. And it's a holistic congruency. I value me, and through that value of me, I make decisions that show I value me, or I don't. And I'm on this Libran journey, and I got to learn how to do that. And I've got to learn really how to do that in relationships. So that's the one little thread of Libra. So the solar journey is about choice, esteem, i.e. value, and relationships and intimacy and meeting the other in someone else. Now let's go to Scorpio. Ooh, that's a bit off. 1 second, y'all. All right, I'm just going to refresh that. I got it fixed. Welcome to being live. All right, so we're going to come back to me, refresh it. Welcome to being live. I wish I could edit that out, but anyway, here we go. Let me get that back up there. All right, Scorpio. So Scorpio, one of the most maligned and misunderstood sun signs. And this is an interesting one to bring up in terms of compatibility, and I'll probably cycle back to this later because you always hear, don't date a Scorpio, right? But, you know, I think I've heard that about every sun sign, so whatever, but they're the ones that are the most, scapegoated and maligned in astrology. And this is a solar journey into the depths of our emotional nature from a psychological lens. So that means we've got to go into how, as a Scorpio sun, if you're a Scorpio sun sign, you've got to go into your own Hades, and you've got to understand why you do what you do from the emotional side of your psyche. So now we're in reactions, we're in compulsions, we're in that part of us that wants to get even and get revenge when someone's called us a name or done something wrong or betrayed us. You know, there's that image of the scorpion having a stinger. And yet what's actually true, and I don't have time to go through every level here, but I will just say this for now, there's actually 4 levels to Scorpio's development. And it's very dynamic. You go from scorpion to snake to eagle to phoenix. And each part of that journey is about going into a new system of patterns within the psycho-emotional and eventually psycho-spiritual emotional aspects of who you are. So there's an intensity to that because this is where we meet our deepest vulnerability in relationships, especially the relationships that trigger our shadow, that trigger our dark side. And it's an interesting journey into the underworld here because one tends to think it's all about shadow work, is all about finding what's wrong with us and what we need to kind of almost apologize to life for about who we are and our dark side. And actually, that whole approach to me doesn't resonate. I find it very shame-based anyway. But moreover, in the shadow is your treasure, you know, and it isn't about slaying dragons there. It's about hugging them and then letting them reveal the treasure through that acceptance and that unconditional love and that meeting yourself and all of your, yes, shadowy parts with curiosity and a sense of esteem about it all. Like, I'm enough no matter what I see in myself. The person that's activated that, I'm enough no matter what I see in myself, that's the person that can see a lot about themselves without judgment, without needing to shove it further in the shadow, and without then having that come out even with more fire and sabotage. So Scorpio journey is that. It is, you've got to learn this shadow. You've got to learn how to be in a robust and active shadow process as part of being alive. And there's a lot in there. There's alchemy. There's so much that I could just talk for an hour about that alone, this particular solar journey. But just know, it is about emotions. It is about your emotional nature. But it's sophisticated in the sense that this is where psychology and spiritual and mysticism actually end up finding an alchemical alembic together in which transformation occurs in you. And that's why there's so many transformative patterns represented through 4 different symbols in Scorpio. So if you're a sun in Scorpio, my best advice is study with someone, maybe me, on how to really create a really robust shadow process for your life as a way to live, not as I'm going to go to a weekend retreat and learn this shadow work. No, this is actually for everybody. This should be true. Once again, we all have the signs in us, but for Scorpio especially, you're going to need to understand the shadow, because what's probably true about you is that other people in your life have dumped their shadow into your field, into your psyche, into your system. And therefore, this becomes all the more urgent and focused for you. People with Sun in Scorpio often have a lot of people in their lives to scapegoat them, which is the process of putting your shadow on someone else and not taking responsibility. It's a projection of your own dark side onto someone else. Gaslighting, scapegoating, that's what it is. So someone's Sun in Scorpio's got to learn, hey, I got to be strong enough, internally engaged enough. I got to know my interior really well, so that for me now, a shadow process is my point of power. Not my point of weakness and looking at all that's wrong with me. Rather, it's my point of power and alchemy. So you can bring your shadow projection to me and I'll shadow dance it right back to you, because I'm that masterful now at understanding what's mine and what ain't, because I took a good look at mine. A lot in there. It's a dynamic, wonderful sign. Sun sign. Just saying. All right, Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, we're on this journey of seeking, of understanding deeper things about life. You know, that question, what does it mean? What does this mean? That's a Sagittarian question. It's the seeker archetype. I want to understand intuitively the laws of creation and life and God, or the divine, or goddess, or whatever you conceptualize as the creative forces of life. I want to know what those are. I want to know what those laws are. I want to know how all that works. I want to know the higher order of things. And in that recruits in a sense of trying to understand karma, justice, the meaning of life, the meaning of things in your life. So if you're a Sun in Sagittarius, you're supposed to be asking these questions more and more the whole of your life. You're supposed to always be wanting to see the bigger picture, understand it, life from a symbolic lens, a bigger picture lens, an intuitive sense of it all. You're under contract to develop your intuition into the higher altitudes. And this is also about teaching. This is about sharing wisdom. This is about becoming wise and stepping into a sense, maybe a philosophical sense of life, but that comes with a lot of caveats, because we can slip into fundamentalism. We can slip into, my worldview is the only worldview. My religion is the only religion. My conceptualization of God or the divine is the true one, not yours. And then if you slip into that, that's the shadow side of Sagittarius, but you betray the sun. You betray the solar quest of, I've got to understand, and it's this, the dynamic nature of truth. And in my deeper work with astrology and just other courses, I've identified there's actually 4 levels of truth. There's not just one truth. And each of us are connected to those levels of truth in our own way. And at the top of I'll share with you, at the top of those 4 levels of truth is universal truth. And there are very few things that are universally true. Very few, actually. Most everything breaks into relative truth, breaks into personal truth, or soul contract truth. Those are the 4 levels. In Sagittarius, if you've got a Sun in Sagittarius, you have to know and understand all of them with skill, with intuitive engagement, and with deep knowing. So that's Sun signs on a quest of understanding truth. Capricorn. This is a quest of understanding one's role in a way through the human ego and its most healthy expression back to the world in a role that's public, that involves work. So a lot of times, if you have a Sun in Capricorn, you're going to see people that are under contract to develop a sense of resiliency, like I said earlier, a sense of being able to get up a mountain, even though they get knocked down. And also, you got to learn what mountains are yours to climb and what aren't. In the Capricorn solar journey, I've seen it can be very dark for people initially. And you might find people Sun in Capricorn, they may seem a bit sort of bipolar, and I'm not saying that clinically. I'm using it metaphorically. From the point of view of, I'm either really down because I just got knocked down the mountain and I'm depressed, or I'm going at it. Let's do this. So one of the archetypes that becomes a centerpiece of the Capricorn journey is the victim. And actually that's true in Libra as well for different reasons. But the victim archetype becomes very important here because life's hard. And if you got a Sun in Capricorn journey, you're here to learn that life's hard. And you learn to be at peace with that and still keep climbing. You're here to learn how to not make a victimizing experience identity. If you have a sun in Capricorn solar journey and you make being a victim your identity, you're dead in the water. You're dead at the base of the mountain. You're never getting up it. You're never getting to that summit, whatever that might be. So there's this sense of I've got to really push through, and we got to go countercultural, because if we're honest, this is a culture that empowers victim consciousness. We have moved in this new era into a grievance-based victim culture. If you go on Twitter for 2 seconds, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone's tweeting from a grievance or some sort of scapegoat of the other side, or this, that, and the other. And that's the cultural new pattern. It's always been present, but it's so dominant now. If you were a Capricorn and that became your modus operandi, and once again, this is what happens when you don't live in alignment with the sun. It's a technical thing. It's not about your worthiness. Okay, be clear. None of these solar journeys are about worthiness from the point of view of get in alignment with your solar journey or you're not enough. That's a shame-based cultural way to look at it, and it's bullshit. No, you're enough no matter what. You're enough if you just collapse into the victim at the base of that mountain. Do you. You're always enough. It's not about worthiness. It is about karma, co-creation, meaning if I don't engage new patterns, then I will stay in what I know and I'll continue this. And usually it's a cycle of sabotage. I will not evolve. I'll keep repeating. It is about that. So Capricorn, it can get hard. And most people with sun in Capricorn, they've had to claw their way up the mountain. I'm being metaphorical, obviously. So maybe literal to some people. So, if you're someone, one of the archetypes is the CEO or the entrepreneur. That's a Capricorn archetype. And let me tell you, anyone that's ever started a business knows what kind of mountain that is. You got to develop thick skin. You cannot collapse into victim consciousness for too long, or you won't have a business, or you won't have, fill in the blank. So if you have a sun sign in this pattern, Capricorn, well, I would just learn how to mountain climb. Learn all the archetypal companions that are part of Capricorn you need to develop to continue up that mountain. And there's quite a few. Now, Aquarius. Aquarius is about the solar journey of beginning to understand life from a one world spherical lens. Now, that's a big statement to make. And I got to break it down and ground it, because it's going to have different gradients of expression based on who you are if you're a sun in Aquarius. On one hand, I've seen people with sun in Aquarius, they have to be whistleblowers. They have to be someone that's in the room that says, you know what? You guys are all lying. This is what really happened, or this is what's really happening. I have to say the truth. I have to shine the light. Now, it's been called the water bearer. And I want to tell you, I really think that the only reason why it was called water bearer back when this sign was first identified, this constellation, is because they didn't have electricity. If this sign was discovered during the age of electricity, it would be called the light bearer. That would be electricity coming out of that vase, not water. This is not a water sign. But I think they were approximating some sense intuitively of it's an energy. It's an energy. It's an electrical energetic that we can also call light, that can convert into light. Aquarius has got to learn how to work with that energetic in some way. And you're bound through a sense of honoring humanity. Honoring, when I say one world, I mean that we're all one world. We're all connected on this planet. So if you've got a sun in Aquarius, this is how this is going to play out. And we're moving into an age of an Aquarius, and you can see this alive and well everywhere. You're going to be challenged on every element of tribalism in you that has any authority. So because to be a rebel or a revolutionary, which is one of the Aquarian archetypes, you've got to be willing to go against the culture, against the tribe. And it's not just to do it without a cause. The cause is I have to go against the tribe because the tribe is dimming the light. And the light wants to come through now. So here we go with a revolution. And it's this journey where you have to be willing to be the person that says what no one else will. You have to be willing to be the lighthouse. You have to be the one willing to reach into your basic sense of connection at a humanitarian level and care about life and care about other people. And out of that, do things, create things, invent, revolutionize. It's working in this life with a co-creative octave of energetics that is not real common for most people creatively. And that can play out not just in, this sort of revolutionary technological sense of how we might look at this these days. It plays out like in the technology of intimacy, the technology of self, the technology of a self relationship, the technology of relating. I have to be countercultural. I have to start a revolution in the love arena of me, in the parental arena of my life. I've got kids and I want to do this different. And maybe it's just as simple as, to your whole family system, you started a rebellion revolution process. And you were the one in the family that always was the truth teller. You were the whistleblower. And in an Aquarian pattern, you got to learn how to be one. So you'll find life puts you in situations, if you have the sun sign, where you're kind of forced into that role. Remember, the sun sign is usually not a consciously chosen direction. It's life constellates situations that force the development or encourage or spark it in some way. And that's why it feels funky. It's like, who wants to sit around and be a whistleblower? That's not fun. Who wants to be the truth teller of a dysfunctional family system? Count me out, right? So, Aquarius, now let's finish with Pisces and we're going to get into compatibility here. So Pisces is about a solar quest in which you begin to, on an emotional level, move into a mystical sense of identity. That's its highest voltage of its pattern. Now, that's where we'll teeter around with the addict archetype in this solar journey. We'll teeter around with various other aspects of mysticism and that voltage when it hits your human psyche, which can't really accommodate it, really, frankly, and some of the problems that come out of that. So in Pisces, there's a sense of, there's an impetus in its core pattern as a sun sign that I've got to align myself with something greater than me. I've got to somehow merge my being with something that is, in a sense, transpersonal. It's bigger than me. So that could be a cause. That could be also, but it's a merger that's emotional in its base. In Aquarius, it's more of a mental, intuitive merging. But in Pisces, in the solar quest, I've got to learn an emotional way to move within the mystical laws of life. And the primary law is that we're all interconnected, all is one. So I've got to somehow live in that law emotionally. Now, if you really just heard what I said, that's massive. It's complicated. And this is why people that have this contract first tend to opt for an addiction. Because it's like, that is so big. I don't know how to manage emotions at that massive mystical level. Let me numb that up. Where's my drink? And oftentimes Pisces will come from, it's very paradoxical, a background where they weren't allowed boundaries growing up, or their boundaries were very, very egregiously violated, because what we're dealing with on one level is how to be with boundaries, but not just from a five sensory point of view. We have to go multisensory in terms of what are energetic boundaries, what are mystical boundaries, what is my singular sense of soul identity. And there's a lot in this sign. And it's something that it's funny as I'm trying to give you a little sense of its pattern. It's the hardest to articulate because it's mystical territory. And in the end, our language it fails there because our human minds certainly don't go there. That's why we have poetry, we have movies, we have stories to communicate mystical truth, because that's how it's best communicated. This is not the mind. And it's not the wounded kind of sense of the boundaryless heart. It's the mystical love rebel heart that looks at things from the eyes of soul and understands the fundamental laws of life, one being impermanence. and yet still meets life emotionally, knowing nothing lasts forever. So that's a little solar tour. Now, while I take a little drink of watermelon juice, what I want to do next is pivot to, okay, great. Got a little something out of my solar journey and my sun sign. Who am I supposed to be with? I mean, that is really the essence of this life. But to get to that answer, you first have to know your journey. Because here's the thing. What does compatibility even mean? What does it even mean? I'm going to say this. The cultural paradigm of compatibility itself is problematic. It's very problematic. And then I'm going to weave astrology into the fold. But for now, we're just going to talk about compatibility, period, and what we've been taught it is. We are each meant to meet people that come into our lives to help us grow, correct? I think you would agree with that. And sometimes that kind of growth in meeting up with someone is this nice deep flow and trust, right? And you just, the people maybe that have come into your life where maybe friends, maybe a partner, but it just felt like immediately there was a connection. Immediately there was a flow. Immediately I felt compatible with them, you might say. That's possible. That's one aspect of how we tend to ignite a soul contract with someone. Now I'm going to come full circle to soul contracts and soul agreements later. But there's also this other side that's part of growth in which it's real rough going. I want you to think of the biggest leaps in growth you've had in your life. And I'm going to wager that most of what comes to mind for you are the crash and burn lessons to learn relationships you've had. So, and sometimes we end up in a bit of both and. You know, it's a little rough and tumble, and also there's some good flow. It kind of yin and yangs around in that sense of it all. But I'm going to ask you this. What in you, what in us, perceives something as compatible? Like, how do you define what's compatible for you? Have you ever really thought about that? Beyond typology, which is what you've learned about astrology and compatibility, that's another level of typology. And what that is it's this. It's the wounded ego's need to grasp onto something that gives it a sense of more control. So if I can tell you, hey, you want more control over your vulnerability? Don't date a Scorpio. You're in. Your wounded ego's like, yes, please. Thank you. Who else should I avoid? But if I came in from the level of I'm your soul guide of destiny and said, listen, life is growth and sometimes it's hard. And there are things in you that are deeply wounded and also deeply unconscious that are driving your intentionality, what you're attracted to, and who you end up choosing to be with in your life. The only way we're going to get to that territory is if you go and date someone who's going to be a rough and tumble, crash and burn lessons to learn relationship. And how that works on the ground level is you're going to see them through the laws of magnetic attraction in a way where you're very attracted to them. They feel like the one. There's this chemistry. There are these sparks. I feel it. And you're not making that up. You absolutely are feeling it. But what you're feeling is an activation of a soul contract between you and someone else that isn't based on what compatibility is in the way I'm going to teach you shortly. It's based on shadow attractor dynamics because you have a contract to learn something from that person. And the first magnet in is this real sense of being pulled to them. And I've seen this in reading after reading. I've dealt with many clients in my life. And in my younger years, this was me, where you just meet that person and it's just fireworks. And nowadays, what you find is it's fireworks for like the first month, maybe a week, and then you get ghosted. They just disappear. And then you're left wondering, I don't understand. There were fireworks. What's going on? What's happening? And here's what I'm after here. What set of eyes are you seeing and defining compatibility through in your life? You got to ask that question. Because if you're seeing through the wounded ego's eyes what compatibility is, it's going to go something like this. That person's hot. And I just love that about them. And they make me feel good. they make me feel happy, which I'm going to translate as they make me feel like I'm enough. You know, it's sparks, it's magnets, it's twin flame territory, it's soulmate territory. It's just, wow. As soon as I hear that coming out of someone's mouth, immediately I go into I'm concerned for you mode, because I know what that actually really is. It's seeing through the wounded ego, your need to chase enough through that person, and you're calling it compatibility or being happy. And what it really is you're looking for something to fill a hole. Now, that's not right or wrong. We all have to grow through a lot of these experiences. I don't want you to, make yourself wrong if this is you right now. I don't want to make you to make yourself wrong if it's been you in the past. This isn't about that. That's not what this life is about. This life is about learning. But this is a particular way we do learn initially, and we can begin to not learn this way if we want to, once we, as they say, wake up, wise up. But the wising up comes in with this. Hey, I got to relook at what compatibility even is. I used to think compatibility is whether we look good on an Instagram post, or whether we look good together, or whether we both speak archetype or speak astrology or speak spirituality. Oh, this person's into this and so am I, and so therefore we're compatible. Oh no, I would not use those metrics. I'd be very concerned, because I'm going to give you new metrics that I think will really dial you into what compatibility is truly about. You've got to be awake enough to know that when you're looking at someone for a date, for, a fiance situation, for, maybe you're married to them, it's a new friend, it's a new group you want to join. If you want to start dialing into true compatibility, you got to drop out of that wounded ego's definition and way of seeing it, because that will lead you into crash and burn lessons to learn experiences. And that's sometimes just the only way we're going to wake up. So that's fine. But wouldn't you want to try something different? Go a different route. Now, where astrology comes in on the superficial level I'm debunking is that it gives us this sense that, well, all I've got to do is take this formula of which sign matches with which, based on a notion that the sign is innately what you are, which is not true. I just taught you that. And based on that notion, now I can use my wounded ego mind to do this: defend my vulnerability, defend against the hard lessons that you're just going to have to go through, because it's just that deep in you as a wounded piece, and it's that deep in your shadow. There's nothing for it. You got to go through it. So our wounded ego, which we all have, let's be clear. And I want to tell you, I don't make the ego wrong. I'm saying wounded ego specifically because of specific facets of ego consciousness. You need a healthy ego to live in this life, and any spiritual teacher is telling you to get rid of your ego is probably tripping up all over their own. This is a psychological truth this is part of the laws of the human psyche territory. You have to have an ego identity. I'm Robert Ohado. Am I going to get rid of that and just walk around and be nobody? No. I'm going to have a sense of myself consciously that I can then co-create through conscious choices and actions, ideally loving and connecting choices and actions. The wounded ego, the part of you that feels like, hey, I'm not enough. From the time I was born, I was effed up. I have something called original sin, which I call original shame. Yeah, that's patterned your relationship to yourself. That has created a wound. We all share this wound in a shame-based culture. I have never met anyone who doesn't have this wound. I've never read anyone who doesn't have this wound. So let's just start in a sense of community with each other, that we all have wounded ego. It's always going to be there in some form. I think we can heal it and rein it in. Absolutely. Or why bother even having this live? But you got to understand that facet of perception, those eyes in you that do see life from time to time, or maybe all the time, how it sees, and certainly something like compatibility. It's looking for the partner, the person, the relationship, the friendship that will get you to enough. based on sociocultural conditioned ideas of value, based on whatever you feel will counter the wound of worthlessness in you. And that's what you tend to define, most people tend to define as compatibility in a partner. Well, or they use cover words like, will make me happy. No, you mean make you enough. You don't feel like you're enough. And so you've got this compatibility list, and all it comes down to, if I shake it down and read you out, is you're just looking for someone to make you enough. And these are the qualities or the aspects that you feel will get you there and make you feel like that person's for me. And then what we tend to do, is then we start dating and relating from image and projection, not from who we really actually are. If you're in who you really actually are, well, now we can talk about compatibility. So you can use a sun sign to discern compatibility from this lens. But this lens requires a few mystical pivots. One, compatibility has to be defined through unconditional love of self and soul esteem, I call it. It's a sense of, I'm enough no matter what. So let me frame it this way. I'm cultivating unconditional love with myself. It's an ongoing process. I'm never really done with it. I find myself in self-judgment and perfectionism and self-criticism pretty much throughout the day. But I get these breaks of unconditional self-love. So I know I have enough mooring to understand this nascent developmental force in me. And I know that it's a practice of cultivating it. And also, in tandem with that, I'm cultivating this new truth, mystical truth, that I'm enough no matter what. I've always been enough. I'll always be enough. There's nothing I can do to make me more enough. There's nothing I can do to make me less enough. It's a facet of my mystical nature. It's a facet of my soul. It is soul esteem. Now I can say that to you and you might be like, ooh, snort me some of that. But that doesn't mean it's an active truth in you. You have to activate it. And that takes inner work. Constantly, frankly. In various ways. So let's turn to sun signs and compatibility for a minute. And then let's talk about compatibility from a very, very different lens. The shaky ego's attempt to have more control through astrological typology or stereotyping as a defense against the vulnerable discovery of someone is what we've come to know as zodiacal compatibility. I'm here to throw that out. I hope you throw it out too. What I want you to ask instead, and notice I said discovering someone. I never want you ever to use astrology as a way to define somebody, including yourself. I would encourage, if you're skilled and knowledgeable enough, to use it as a way to reveal yourself or someone. But you've got to understand the proper approach to the tool intuitively. So I said you are the whole birth chart. Maybe more accurately said, you express your destiny through the whole birth chart. You express facets of your patterns and your psyche and your psychology and your psycho-spiritual nature through the birth chart. And I can look at that birth chart and see exactly how. But I got to also leave room for the fact that there's a soul doing the expressing that will forever remain a mystery in part. I could be looking at the chart of a 10-year-old boy or a 10-year-old dog, and it could be the same exact chart. But what consciousness is expressing through that chart? The psyche of a dog or the psyche of a child? Now, 2D astrology, I call it, would just have you with all these adjectives and all these stereotypes and not feel intuitively the soul coming through that chart. Because I've done work with twins back when I used to read the children of parents that would have the same exact birth chart. And yet I could sense the different souls in that architecture, expressing different facets of that architecture in unique ways, even though it's the same blueprint. And that's just to give you a mooring in your holographic, dimensional, multidimensional nature and your soul. And that's also to say, look, if we're going to talk about astrology as a way to understand compatibility, let me give you the threads I can that I think might actually help. Dump the typology, dump the stereotypes, because all that is to me is you and your wounded ego holding court and trying to figure out how to control your vulnerability, the vulnerability of life, order off a menu that your ego, wounded ego minds created around who's right for you. That excludes, hey, I've got who's right for me. It might be someone that triggers me in this way and actually takes me to Hades in this way, because I've got to go get treasure there that I can't get on my own. I need a relationship to get down there. Now, if I were to say that to you, would you then consciously be able to go, all right, I got to hold space for this aspect of this relationship I'm in because it serves me this way? Or would you make your partner wrong? Or would you go the opposite route, not have enough self-connection to discern that they're not compatible, but not from stereotype and surface wounded ego desire and getting to enough. Rather, they're not compatible because they don't enhance my journey of destiny. We do not share in core values. We do not share in a core sense of what life is actually about. When you get into the core, soulful, psycho-spiritual arenas of self, now we can talk about compatibility from a conscious place. Now, where astrology can help that is to say this. You can't use a sun sign as a way to discern and define compatibility per the popular astrological stereotyping that is found in our culture. I hope you got that. I would not do that. That's the shaky ego's attempt to have more control by using astrological stereotyping. And it's a defense against discovering who someone is and that vulnerable process. And it is vulnerable. This is where you step into that vulnerable territory of getting to know someone, and those questions of, I wonder if they like me. I wonder if they're going to not like this part of me. I wonder if they're going to leave me. I wonder if they're going to do this. I wonder if they're going to cheat on me. So then we go to astrology. Well, what sign cheats the most? Scorpio. Okay, cool. No Scorpios. No. There's no wholeheartedness and activated vulnerability in that approach at all. And I'll tell you what, you're going to end up dating images and projections, and then you're going to get betrayed, because that's what they do. Images and projections betray you. But if you say, okay, no, I'm not going that road. I'm going to go a little deeper. So rather than taking the easy road of latching onto someone's astrology sign and defining them via it, how about I engage the vulnerable process of discovering who they are? Yeah, do that. You want to look at how you are wired to defend against your fears of intimacy. Now, I'm a fan. I love me some Brené Brown. Girl, if you're watching, hi. I'm a fan of people earning your vulnerability. I love what she laid down with that, and absolutely aligned to that 100%. But that alone, defining for yourself what someone needs to do to earn your vulnerability, that's part of defining compatibility. It's, you know what, you've got to earn my vulnerability in these ways, and not from a perfectionist list of who they've got to be. And no, that's surface. Someone earning your vulnerability or beginning to reveal compatibility goes like this. Hey, does that person keep their word? Does that person keep their word to themselves? Not perfectly, but consistently enough. Does that person have a shadow process? You know what? They don't have a shadow process. We're not compatible. Absolutely not. You're not compatible. There you go. You're not compatible. Do they have a shadow process? No, yeah, you're not compatible. Does that person apologize? Does that person take responsibility for their mistakes and learn from them? And it's something you do. Do they do that? No, they don't. You're not compatible. Absolutely. Now we're in compatibility. Now we're into compatibility. Does that person cultivate loving kindness? Does that person aspire to be a more self-connected, empowered human being? Does that person have a process of self-love? No? Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm just probably not compatible. Is that person in any active addictions? They are? Okay, we're not compatible. Absolutely. This is where we get to compatibility. Now, where's astrology? Where is it useful? Does it even matter? Yes and no. It depends on how you want to look and reveal things here. What you can do with astrology is this. You can use the knowledge of someone's sun sign from the point of view I just taught you of it being a solar quest, a destiny developmental process for them to understand their journey better. So if you're married to someone who is a Scorpio sun, then I just offered you a way to understand them and understand their contract and their developmental process. And then you are empowered now in understanding them that way. You're empowered now on how to best support them in that journey, not mold them into what your wounded ego thinks you need to be compatible and make yourself enough and define intimacy through cultural standards of what that means. Rather, we're in the territory of soul contracts, soul agreements, soul mates. Do you think soulmates are just only the people in your life that are easy? No. Some of your deepest soulmates are the ones that have effed up you and sabotaged you and betrayed you. They're here as a teacher. They're here for you to locate power in you, teach you how to self-parent, how to mystically pivot with life, and create through your solar pattern. So the sun sign can be used as a way to go, that's how they're contracted. Their soul wants to take that Cancer journey, that Leo journey this lifetime. Okay, I want to understand deeper what that journey is about and whether or not I can be a compatible companion to them and vice versa. Here's where we could maybe lean into astrology to understand compatibility through sun signs. And this is the only place I'm going to take you here. We could go into deeper territory, to be honest, around birth chart to birth chart, the whole shebang, the whole blueprint, and then intuitively recruit and activate and read the soul of each person and how patterns are moving and expressing and how each is maybe learning and has a contract to learn from each other and decode the contract that way. Absolutely. And it's brilliant for that. But for you to even get to that, you got to have a PhD like I do in astrology, and you got to understand this stuff in a very deep way, and you got to be highly intuitively skilled. So when it comes to astrology and sun signs, you can throw the rest out. Or you can go hide behind a socioculturally defined definition of compatibility and suffer some more. Or you can take the deep dive and begin the vulnerable journey of discovering if you're actually meant to be with someone, if they're meant to be with you. And if they're not, don't take it personally if you can. It's sometimes it's just soul contracts. It's just fate and destiny. That said, I want to say it another way. There's no one to avoid as a sun sign in relationship to your sun sign. There's no one to avoid. If you get into a relating and discovery process with someone and you start to realize, you're just on a different journey than me. I'm not sure we're compatible. I'm with you. That's a great read. Oh yeah, what's your sun sign? Oh, you're a Libra. Okay, I get it. Okay, and I know the deeper aspects of the Libran archetypal patterns and journey, and I'm not so sure that I can help you in that Libran growth. Wow. That is a spiritually mature adult giving a straight up, clear, intuitive read in the most compassionate and truthful way, and where it's clean. It's not superstition. It's not stereotype. It's not defining someone. It's, hey, here's the truth. I can't support your journey the way you need. I know myself enough to know my limits. I know myself to know I just have certain things that I need in my life for compatibility to work. Now, compatibility can go into more surface arenas and still, I think, be very authentic. There's sexual compatibility that can be a genuine issue. There's different compatibilities that exist just in terms of, hey, I'm a morning person, you're a night person. It's kind of hard. Or you snore. I mean, these are real things too, but they're not based in a wounded ego defense. They're based in, hey, I actually need to sleep, and I just can't be with someone who snores like you do. And I need to sleep until 10. You get up at 5. I don't know. This might be a little rough. Those are real things to consider. And then here's what I would say. Incompatibility, there's really only referencing your intuition, knowing your standards and your core values enough to know whether someone carries those same standards and core values and inner compass like you do. And if they carry enough of standards, core values, and a shadow process in them to earn your vulnerability. Do they have enough of that to earn your vulnerability? Now, let me contrast this with what really typically happens. Instead of that, what lots of people do is they don't even go near what I just said, and they stay in the zone of their wounded ego and their perfectionism lists and their astrology mapping through stereotypes and BS. And then their wounded ego gets their defenses all ready to rock. And then they get ghosted a month later, or betrayed or cheated on a year later. I mean, not always, but you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work out because you're not coming from a deeper arena. You know, there's times where it can be, I'm referencing myself. I dated someone who'd had sleeping issues, and it just became a problem. And they were great, but I got to sleep, you know? So we weren't compatible. Someone doesn't like animals, you do. You want to have dogs and maybe a cat. Okay, not compatible. Absolutely. So compatibility to me is really referencing your own intuition, standards, core values, enough to know whether someone carries the same compass in them in ways that can earn your vulnerability. That's compatibility. Now, true astrology can be absolutely useful in many ways in understanding what I would say are your soul contracts and soul agreements with people. So let's hop into that for a minute, and we're going to close it down. You at the core have, and this is what I read in my readings. I don't necessarily do full-time readings anymore, but back when I was in the full-time arena of doing this with people, we have agreements with people on this deep soul level. And there's flow charts in there to some degree, maybe another social live, I can talk about that. But what astrology can do is reveal what those agreements are. Reveal, not define, reveal. It can reveal yourself to yourself. It can reveal your own inner patterns. That's another thing about compatibility. What patterns does someone have? Are they compatible with yours? If you're someone that is vegan and someone isn't, that might be a compatibility issue. It might not. If you're someone who strives to live a very healthy lifestyle and active, and you exercise and you get out and do stuff, ride bikes and yoga, and you hike, and the person you're dating sits in front of a computer and plays video games all day, well, it's probably not compatible. Yeah. Those are real things as well. But is there any astrology sign that's going to talk about that? Absolutely not. No. So as you look at this, you also want to go soul contract on it and go, wait a minute, do we even have a soul agreement to grow from our relationship with each other? If you're at the level of working with someone that's really founded their growth in a deep, robust shadow process and their own sense of spirituality and psychology and inner work, and you have these conversations consciously, that's fantastic. Compatibility conversations consciously, amazing. I trust you'll figure it out. But if you're going to bounce from one typology book to another and one formula to another about what compatibility is, and avoid the real vulnerability of discovering someone and whether they're compatible through discovery, or if you're going to negate the red flags that come up and say, not compatible, inactive addiction, not compatible, this is a taker, wanting you to be a giver, not compatible, And the thing is, you may have been compatible before because there is something called archetypal matching. I'm going to be teaching a course on that actually in September and into October. There's something called archetypal matching where you know what, you're wired to be a giver. It's how you get esteem. And so, oh, imagine that. Guess what comes into your life all the time? Takers. And you are compatible from a dysfunctional shadow perspective until you're not, because you make a mystical pivot and you stop being a shadow giver. And you become someone who's interested in reciprocity as a mystical lover. And you want partners, not projects. Okay, you just changed the magnetic attraction and archetypal matching of your life. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that next time, but soul contracts means, hey, I've got a soul agreement to learn how to not be an archetypal match this way anymore, how to shift a certain way. How does that play out? It plays out in a relationship a lot of the time. You know, you get someone in that you know, messes you up a little in the best way, because it's a wake-up call. It's how we all have learned, you know, and I don't think, you know, we're not opted out of that necessarily. We can work with it more consciously, and it stops showing up because now we can spot a narcissist a mile away, a vampire a mile away, and we can understand, hey, you got patterns that I'm not compatible with. And it's not on surface level stuff. It's core stuff for me. I want to live a healthy life. I'm sorry, I can't date a smoker. We're just not compatible. Yeah, you're not. So listen, I hope this was really helpful and thought-provoking. There's a lot more to say as always, but it's great to be back with all of you. And just stay tuned. I'll do another Friday Social Live next week. Probably take a thread out of this and go forward. I'd love to see all of your comments up. I ran a bit late here, so I got to go. But I'd love to see all your comments up here, and I'll look at them later. And feel free to share this around with anyone that might help. But truly, I hope this was helpful. And I always, you know, say take what works and leave the rest. But this is based on my experience. This isn't just me coming up from some making stuff up. This actually played out in 20 years of working with people and seeing, almost as a empirical analysis, you know, analyst, just seeing, you know, these things happen in people, including myself, obviously. So you are not innately your sun sign. It is a process of development, and there's a little bit of room to use astrology for compatibility purposes, but I definitely look at compatibility separate first and then see where you want to go after that. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this social live. I'll see you next Friday. You want to stay in the know on social lives, sign up on my newsletter. Make sure you're following me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and you'll be in the know. I'll put the next one up a little sooner next week, and I'll see you then.